Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk About Clutter. I'm your host, Margo, a professional organizer specializing in chronic clutter. If you've ever looked around your home and felt your chest tighten or felt too anxious to even think about cleaning up a space, I want you to know that you are not alone. Stress is absolutely everywhere, from our jobs, our families, the constant mental to-do list, and guess what? That stress doesn't stay in your head. It shows up in your space. When life feels chaotic, clutter tends to pile up. And then, that clutter creates more stress. And the cycle begins over and over and over again. But here's what I want to tell you. You might not always be able to control, your job, your kids' moods, or your inbox, but you can take control of your home. And that control, that's the real power. So today, let's talk about how taking control of your clutter can actually ease your stress. And I mean, at the end of the day, who doesn't want their stress levels to decrease? I'm just saying. Studies have shown that clutter raises cortisol levels, our stress hormone. It affects our sleep, our focus, and even how we eat. And especially for women over 40 like me, juggling careers, caregiving, aging parents, and health, it can feel like there's just no break to be found anywhere. I remember at one point when I was on my first marriage and I was so incredibly stressed. My relationship was very, very stressful. My family was actually driving me absolutely nuts, and my job was kicking my butt. Actually, at that time, I think I had like 3 or 4 jobs. And I remember finding solace in my car. I literally, not joking, I would sit in my car for like an hour, just parked, sitting there. And that was the only place I could find to feel at peace. And of course, everything changed once I took control of my life and I was able to decrease my stress levels. But one of the things that really helped with that was taking control of my home. And if you've listened to some of my other podcast episodes, you know that I went atomic on my home and I really focused on the 80-20 rule, which was getting rid of the 80% that's like really big, really imposing in your space. So it was like furniture and artwork. And like I really focused on those big things to feel like I can breathe because, for me, decluttering my home and getting rid of, a trinket here, a trinket there, a trinket there, it just wasn't having the same impact. So yes, I went atomic. I made mistakes, threw out a bunch of furniture. I went on a rampage. I don't recommend it, although I find it to be incredibly therapeutic. But my point is that my stress levels decreased as a result of creating a peaceful environment in my home. So here's your break. You don't have to sit in a car like me. Decluttering, actually, even small amounts, can give you something tangible to change when everything else feels unmanageable. And look, life is life. And, I think of life as a roller coaster, right? There's no such thing as just kind of this like flat line, right? You have a lot of ups and downs. And there are some days that are really bad and some weeks and some months. And then there's some days, weeks, and months that are absolutely fantastic and you wish you had more of them. But then they go away. But the point is, the reality is that we're going to have ups and downs and stress is going to happen. And whenever I think of managing stress, I always think of, while I feel out of control in my life, what are some things that I actually can have control over? And clutter is really one of those things at any given moment. And I know that it can feel incredibly overwhelming because maybe there's too much of it, and we'll kind of talk about how to get started. But in general, clutter does not control you. You control clutter. So I'm going to say that again in a different way. But inanimate objects do not control you. You have the power. And I think that that is a wonderful thing. And that's so empowering when you think of it that way. So it's not just about having a clean house. It's about having a place that helps you reset, recharge, and quite frankly, breathe, or rather breathe easier. So here's what I want to remind you of today. You don't need to overhaul your home overnight to feel relief, okay? You do not have to go atomic. You do not have to burn down your home. You don't have to literally start throwing everything out on your lawn. I mean, again, if you want to do that, by all means, very therapeutic, but you don't have to. You can start small and think of these small steps as emotional self-care. So one of the things that I highly recommend that many of my clients do is to create something we call a calm zone. Pick one space, like a corner of your bedroom or a spot on your kitchen counter, and make it peaceful. This can also be your bathroom, countertop, or again, anywhere you want. Clear the clutter, light a candle, put something pretty there. There is your breath of calm when things get hard. So you want a small space that's just yours, that's pretty to look at. Now, my version of pretty to look at, I'll be fully transparent, is like nothing on it. I want it to be completely bare, completely clean, and devoid of any kind of stimulus. But at the same time, like again, you have your, maybe it's a nightstand that you decluttered, right? And all you have on that nightstand is a delicious scented candle, or maybe a vase of fresh flowers, right? Find comfort in a small area of your home. And that's where we start, right? You know that when you're becoming overwhelmed, when your brain is like on overload because it's overstimulation, right? The more stuff you have, the more you're being kind of ambushed by stimuli, right? And things demanding your attention, and it can get super duper overwhelming, but you know that you have at least one space, one corner, one room of your home that you can go into and you can breathe and de-stress. So figure out what that space is for you. For me, it used to be, well, it still is, but it was a nook area. I love to read. So the first thing that I really took control of and minimize was my chair that's by a window that has plants that I like to grab a cup of coffee and read a book. And while even other areas of my home looked chaotic. And, even when they look chaotic, because look, I have a family, children running around, dogs running around. So it's not all rosy and perfectly tidy here all the time. Quite the contrary, right? But I always know that I can go into my nook area, my comfy corner, and kind of de-stress and unwind. All right. The second thing that you can do is you can declutter 5 things when you feel anxious. Just 5 things. It is super easy to find 5 things to declutter. So instead of doom scrolling or snacking when stress hits, try this. Walk into a room and find 5 things you no longer need. Trash, donate, or rehome. And this will build momentum and ease your mind. And again, this is a very small, simple technique to trick your brain into being like, I have control over my life and I have control over my environment. You can simply open a dresser drawer and just be like, what the heck is this? I'm never going to wear this, and get rid of it. It's the same concept as if, have you ever, I'm sure you have, when, you're feeling incredibly stressed, you kind of go on Amazon and you want to buy a bunch of things, right? And like the idea of just looking at pretty things and adding them to cart, you get that dopamine fix. And it's interesting too, because you don't even have to check out and buy the item. Simply the act of looking at pretty things as if, right? There's a phrase that's act as if. So you're acting as if you're going to buy and you're adding to cart, but you never actually check out. You still get that dopamine hit. And this is the same concept, right? You are getting rid of 5 things. You're not decluttering an entire room or an entire house. You're getting rid of just 5 things, but you're telling your brain, I am in control. And by that, you can decrease your stress levels. Another thing you could do is set a daily decluttering timer. So I love this. I think that just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you really will be amazed at how effective and how much stuff you'll actually be able to declutter. It's super manageable. It's incredibly repeatable, and it lowers your mental load. And of course, also by decluttering and by using decluttering in order to decrease your stress levels, you're making your home prettier, right? You're actually creating a home that it has less stuff in it, less clutter, and eventually will become more organized and more tidy, and therefore also easy to clean, so you're no longer a slave to your home. Another thing you could do is you can pair decluttering with something you love. So for example, music, your favorite podcast, a cup of tea. Make decluttering feel less like a chore and more like a gift to yourself. So think of decluttering as opposed to a chore and something we dread doing, which is why we procrastinate, right? Think of it as self-care. Like, not only are you providing self-care for yourself, but you're also providing self-care for your home. So change the script, flip the script on how you look at decluttering. You are benefiting your home, your space, and also yourself. You are decreasing your stress levels by decluttering and purging your home. And I think that is like a win-win. So think of it as a gift to yourself. So I love this idea of using decluttering as a way to decrease stress levels, as a way to control the external and therefore making sense and controlling our own internal world. And by the way, it works both ways, right? When mentally we feel overwhelmed, our home will reflect that. When our home is overrun and overwhelmed by clutter, mentally we feel overwhelmed. So they kind of are in this toxic dance with each other. But again, I go back to the thing that I said in the beginning of this episode is the power here is you are in control of your stuff. And life will always have stress. That's just being human. But clutter, that's the one stressor that you can reduce, right? Or eliminate. You don't need permission. You don't need perfection. You just need a moment to begin. And every time you declutter, you're not just clearing stuff. You're clearing space for peace. You're reminding yourself, I'm in control and I can do this. So I believe in you. Go ahead and walk over to any room in your home, a shelf, whatever, pick up an item and just let it go. Go ahead and trash it. I give you permission. Go do it and let me know how it feels. Thank you so much for listening. I do hope that you enjoyed this episode. As always, good luck on your decluttering journey and remember to be good to yourself.